what about the attacks? How do you explain that?
So Glen Schofield is the original creator of Dead Space, and he is also heavily involved in the Callisto Protocol, which isn't canon to Dead Space. It's a completely separate project and it's from a different distributor and studio. However, it was released before the Dead Space remake, which is hot off the press, and my next video. So I'm going to do this all in 3 chunks. We're going to standalone review both of them and then compare them in a third final video. I am Couchcoop, and if you are new, then you need to get used to this. Long drawn out shots, slow pans, a good look at the lighting, a good look at the textures. Everything needs to be scrutinized because I'm going to say it now. This game is stunningly beautiful, and I played it pre-patch and after. The pre-patch version crashed on me 15 times in under an hour, and I couldn't even get the damn photo mode working. This is all pre-patch. You can see that it's not disastrous, there aren't any huge frame dips, and this is running at a pegged 60 frames per second with an upscale 4K target. Did not capture at that. No performance toggles for the PlayStation 5, and hand on heart, it wasn't until I looked at the dimensions of the capture that I realized it wasn't 4K. So that's how good that upscaling is. I'm also probably the perfect demographic for this game, being a PlayStation 5 owner, having a deep love for dark sci-fi horror, and loving all of the Dead Space games, even 3. Despite it being released on all the base level systems, this does actually feel like a true current gen gory sci-fi bit of brilliance. This is the pre-patch photo mode, and have a good look at the guy's head. Jacob, he's known as. It's fuzzy, it's grainy, it keeps falling out of focus. I thought it was to do with movement of the character when you click that button, but this was all lifted out once that patch kicked in. This leads on to some of the fire effects, some of that granular detail just being a bit haywire. It was damned welcomed, this huge patch, and I feel really bad about anyone who played this on launch day, and the big name reviewers that all just rattled through it to get their content out as soon as. For Cloud, you guys really missed out on an amazing update for visuals. You say that like they're listening, Coop. Well, I can. The self-grandiose is big today. No one's captured this game with this beautiful photo mode like this. I've not seen one video review where they've actually shown me a damned asset properly and got to look at these things in detail. Jesus Christ, thank God I'm here. Yeah, that was my first encounter. I was like talking to some zombie behind some bars, feeling pretty safe, and then I was just grabbed and thrown to the ground with a broken neck. I was like, I am on board. And that brings me on to the smear campaign, which I can only describe as the most foundless load of crap ever. So many big YouTubers complained about this close quarters dodging system. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a great angle. It's the injection of ingenuity we need in a game type like this, and it gives the game so much gravitas. I had to stand still for like 30 seconds because I just realized that I could have bought one of the best sci-fi games to come out this year.
The watchtower. Just have to go the long way. Just be careful. They keep the real crazies down there.
Alien Isolation would have been the last time I was this immersed in a sci-fi universe. It's absolutely incredible with its lighting and level design. And get this, they used AI to fabricate efficient design in all of the furniture, corridors. It gives internal architecture ruthless efficiency, which is exactly what it would be like.
No, we're not infected!
Lethal force has been authorized.
Talking of ruthless, it's by far the most gory and violent game I've played for a long time. This, it gobsmacked even myself. A lot of the scenes and a lot of the blood and a lot of the tension and a lot of the body gore will be quite difficult for people. Funny enough, there's a scene just like this in Scorn with a sort of brutal aftermath of some sort of experiment going on. It's paced it brilliantly with the discovery of how this whole canon is working with the story. Let's go into detail about this combat system. You do get prompted early doors about which way to go, but essentially the enemies are going to swing at you and you're going to try and go in the sort of opposite direction, or you're going to push back, which gives you a straight out and out block. Couple of swipes from their direction and it is over. So the tension is so high and you have to be careful. You can paint yourself in a corner by the autosave, putting you in a very difficult spot, and you've just got no health whatsoever. That one needs to be looked at a little bit. Then you start getting to sections where it introduces 2 of them. in this particular section, the second zomboid disappeared. I was like ready for him to come at me from the back. It does that thing they do in old school Kung Fu movies where they sort of wait their turn. But if you hit one by accident or get them involved in the melee, they'll just come at you simultaneously, which is something you desperately want to avoid because there is no lock-on. There's no focus on target. You're very much swinging and winning. We have also jumped over to the new patch mode and straight into that photo, and you can see that that head, everything about that torso, the guy is crisp AF, everything in the background is beautiful. I'm going to lose myself in this. One thing I need to be very careful of is this game's progression and story are integrally tied into different zombie types and locations. So I've kept this front 25%. You see some slightly later stuff at the end because I want to show some of the cool weapons off.
Those things do pack a punch, though. We are gonna need it.
Let's talk about that, because I was kind of devastated to see the back of that pickaxe, to be fair, but the electric baton, I mean, it's got RE4 vibes, this game, big time, and using that to push enemies back onto environmental hazards and stuff, really cool, and I don't even have the telekinesis pushback, which is coming up shortly. There's a lot of classic sci-fi horror influences being flexed in this game, Event Horizon being one of them, and I also feel it's got a really strong Clive Barker vibe, and that's very important. Every single goddamn sci-fi game seems to take more than a pinch from Giger or Geiger. I don't like that being overused too much. Scorn is a very good example of that, even though these two games are 1,000 miles apart. That fresh influence is cool. Barker's okay, but the whole occultist macabre angle, as opposed to the sort of hive, dark and black, the more crimson area, is very welcome and shows quite a high level of sophistication when it comes to what you're going to grab from and put into a sci-fi game like this, because the easy options are everywhere. Same goes for all the interior sort of hive and pustular structure. You just get a Thing vibe with this, right? Total John Carpenter as opposed to Clive Barker. It's not H.I. Giger. That also fits a lot better with the narrative being it a viral infection as opposed to a tactile hard xenomorph. This disease is transforming normal people into unholy abominations. Let's get back into that combat and let's look at multiple enemies, because that's where things get really interesting, because to be honest, it's stressful as hell, and having to deal with these things queued up, i.e. the next one straight away, is very grueling, but I love it. And those death animations, the chunks that come off these things is really eye-watering, and the fact that they still go forward after losing some very integral parts of their bodies is amazing. Those enforcer robots, you don't get to interact with them enough as far as I'm concerned. They are OP and they're there to be the doorstop to, any misbehavior early on. In the opening intro, there's a scene where like a SWAT military team are coming in and they're like taking cover and they've got their guns, and I was like, oh no, it's going to be shooter-based cover early on to just sort of keep all the COD fans happy. But in hindsight, the lack of projectile weaponry in the opening quarter is a godsend. There's also an antagonist/protagonist that keeps popping up and down, a bit like Wesker did in Resident Evil 5. You're not too sure what side they're on, and it's really cool. I like the character. She hasn't been too well received by a lot of the audience, but it's an added layer, and that's one thing I will say. This game has got the most efficient, stripped-down front-end tutorial/introduction I've had the pleasure in playing in years. It doesn't bugger about, it knows exactly what you're up for, and it just gets you straight in. Alright, I know you've all been waiting for it. It's the first pistol. It's the first bit of projectile weaponry you get in the game. Does it change things up? Yes and no. Is it a cool addition? My god, it's a really good piece of gear to have during that melee combat. They haven't implemented it being this sort of free fire, overpowered, get out of jail ticket. It's embedded into that combat routine fantastically. That was my first shot with the gun in the game. Back to the Resident Evil comparisons, ammo is damn scarce. You do not want to be trigger happy, and there's no dodge, so you have to use your brain with left and right in when stuff is coming at you. Now this is the moment everything changed. When that arm came off, those lights lit up and I realised that I can use that gun to sort of pinpoint areas and start deconstructing these things. It was just amazing. Obviously you go for the head, but that does not stop this thing. I was in awe fighting John Merrick with no head like that. I was knocked back. I had to just get a bit of photo mode, really look at this weird skin and pus and teeth stuff going on. This is two heads and morphed together. It's called a big mouth, and obviously it's the range variant of the zombies, but absolutely hideously horrendous rendering, top marks. Okay, I'm going to show you the death scene from these things. If you watched my original Dead Space PC review, you'll know what I'm getting at with this, but this didn't hold back. This is obviously the up to 11 version from Dead Space 1. Disclosures and warnings, this is horrific. It's always constantly trolling you as well. I love this scene. One of these bags is blatantly, extremely suspicious. It does put me on to the weapon idle put away. So what happens is you will automatically put away your melee weapon. There is no real delay on getting that thing out, but I just feel so much safer walking around with it ready. You'll see perfect example of why that is important coming up now. Remnant from the Ashes has the same system where R2 just brings an immediate melee attack. I love it. You're not worried about your gun looking down your sights. You're just good to go on the close quarters. I did fall out with the game structurally on a couple of occasions, and I don't think this is a deliberate one from the devs. What they tend to do is give you a mission objective within quite a small area, but they'll add like an alternative direction to go in that will be a loop that will be maybe have some loot in it, or maybe it will have some sort of secret collectible, and you'll convince yourself that you're going the right way, but you're not. You're stuck in this loop and you'll miss a small window or doorway out of it. It happens a few times, you need to be aware of it. Doesn't matter though, because we've just picked up the grav gun from Half-Life 2.
But it's good. It works on all sorts of things too. Go on, give it a go.
Will do.
Things really do change from there on in. It's actually quite liberal with the amount of freeze it gives you. So you can stop these guys in their tracks, you can pick them up and push them away, or you can grab something else and throw it at them. It's all a little bit overwhelming at the start because you're so used to these things being almost able to one-shot you that you now have the power. So with the projectile power, with your pistol, with your upgraded electricity baton, and maybe you've pumped some health in and you've got slightly better clip size on the gun, you're starting to feel a little bit badass, and you're really starting to deliver like a badass. You're confident with the fighting, you understand that nothing's going to come at you all at once, and there's a sneak system that allows you to get cheeky kills when you enter an arena. Always a good idea to get crouched and have a good look around to see what's going on. I'm also very impressed with its environments and set pieces. This whole station just feels massive. Bigger than Ishimura, bigger than Nostromo. It's an extremely well realised, metal, gritty, massive space structure that's been lived in and used, and it also feels like it's going pear-shaped just correctly, with handfuls of equipment working, other bits being derelict. It's pretty slick on the production front on that level.
It's full of those things.
This particular section you will see again when it comes to that third video for obvious reasons. I wanted to point out some of the sort of weird anomalies with that grab mechanic. Sometimes stuff just dies instantly. It might get pulled into a section of wall that was insta-kill and it wasn't made clear to you. It's quite strange, and if you run out whilst you're holding something, you'll drop it, and if it's a killer zombie and it's right in front of your face, you're in a lot of trouble. The game also uses this ability to the maximum, putting you in so many rooms that you've got to throw them into massive grinders. Whoever made this space station must have been moonlighting as a baloney salesman. This is a great scene. I've chopped the legs off that projectile dude and given him the dignity of a stamp death, and I'm just getting really liberal with a lot of the moves here, throwing this guy around, and it just swings back wrong. If you relax too much, got that Dark Souls element where a mistake can spell really massive disaster. Another kill cam coming up, guys, look out. It's a real cut. It really cuts like that in the game. It just goes to a black screen and the continue button. You're just like, oh my god, of course I'm going to continue if that's the way I'm going to get taken out in the future. What a job the Dead Space remake is going to have to do to win me over, to put it in front of this. I've had such an incredible time with it. It's got so much more to do with Resident Evil 4 than the original Dead Space, I think. And this is a real hit for me. I know it's firing on all cylinders for sci-fi horror fans like myself, and maybe some of those reviewers were expecting something a little bit more mundane, but wow, what an incredible horror space sci-fi video game, and really it does feel current gen. That's the last one, guys. I promise no more death, horrible, violent scenes like that, and I'll be amazed if this video gets monetized. I have been Couch Coop. I thoroughly enjoyed making this video and playing this game. What an absolute joy. And check out some of my other sci-fi material. I'm going to leave you with a quick clip, and this one sort of ticks arachnophobia, fear, panic, urgency, dominance, and just out and out disgust and disappointment with myself that I let the damn thing go. I have been Couch Coop, and I will of course see you down there.